My boyfriend once told me, maybe I should stop being so careful. If you get pregnant, maybe that means it was supposed to happen. That was the night I realized love can sound soft and still be dangerous. My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 30 years old, and until last year, I thought the scariest thing in a relationship was falling out of love. I was wrong. The scariest thing is realizing the person sleeping beside you has started planning a future with your body before asking whether you agreed to be part of it. Ryan and I had been together for almost 3 years. For most of that time, we lived separately. He rented a room with two other guys, and I had a small one-bedroom apartment I had kept since before we met. It was not fancy, but it was mine. My name was on the lease. My bills were paid on time. I had savings, a retirement account, and a quiet little life that made sense to me. Ryan used to joke that I treated money like it had feelings. I never told him the full reason. I grew up in a house where money was never just money. It was shouting through bedroom walls. It was my mother crying at the kitchen table. It was my father working overtime and still somehow being blamed for everything we did not have. When they divorced, the whole family cracked open. Custody schedules, child support fights, lawyers, resentment, and my father moving into a studio apartment while still paying for a house he no longer lived in. I learned young that love does not protect you from consequences. So when I started dating Ryan, I was honest early. On our fourth date, sitting across from him at a little Thai restaurant, I said, I don't want children right now. Maybe not ever. I'm not saying never for the rest of my life, but I am saying absolutely not now. He nodded like that was completely reasonable. I'm not in a rush either, he said. I like us the way we are. I believed him. For the first 2.5 years, I had no reason not to. We had normal routines, normal arguments, normal plans. He knew I tracked my cycle. He knew I was on birth control. He knew I still expected condoms, because protection was not supposed to be one person's responsibility. Then, 8 months ago, his roommate situation fell apart, and Ryan moved into my apartment. That was when the tone changed. Not immediately. That would have been easier to recognize. It started gently. At Target, he slowed down near the baby section and picked up tiny sneakers like they were some kind of sign. Look at these, he said once. Can you imagine? I gave a small smile and kept walking. At restaurants, he watched families with toddlers too long. When one of his coworkers posted a baby announcement, he showed me the picture and waited for my face to soften. One night, he showed me a video of a father crying during a gender reveal. You'd be a good mom, he said. My stomach tightened. Not because the words were cruel, but because they sounded rehearsed. I put my fork down and said, Ryan, I need to know if we're still on the same page. He leaned back. About what? Children. His face changed for half a second before he smiled. Claire, I'm just talking. I'm serious. My position has not changed. I'm not ready. I don't know if I'll ever be. If that is a deal breaker, I need you to tell me honestly. He reached across the table and touched my hand. I'm not pressuring you, he said. I just think couples should be able to talk about the future. That sounded fair, so I let it go. But the little comments kept coming. He sent articles about fertility windows. He mentioned that his mother had him young and figured things out. He joked that responsible people like me could plan ourselves into old age if life did not push us. Each comment was small enough to dismiss. Together, they started feeling like smoke filling a room. Then came the argument. It started over something stupid. Dishes, maybe, or a subscription he forgot to cancel. One of those fights that is not really about the first sentence. He said I controlled everything. I said I was tired of being the only person who thought ahead. Then he said, You don't think ahead, Claire. You hide from life and call it planning. That stung, but I stayed calm. Then he said the line that changed everything. You know what? Maybe I should stop being so careful. Maybe I should let nature do what it's supposed to do. If you get pregnant, maybe that would mean it was meant to happen. I went completely still. He was standing by the counter, arms crossed, face flushed with anger. I was holding a dish towel, and suddenly the apartment felt too quiet, like even the refrigerator had stopped humming. I said slowly, What did you just say? He rolled his eyes. Don't act like I said something insane. You said you might stop being careful without telling me. I said maybe life needs to happen naturally. No, I said. You're talking about removing my ability to consent to pregnancy. He scoffed. That's reproductive coercion. He laughed. Not nervously, not apologetically. He laughed like I had embarrassed myself. You sound like a Reddit post. I did not laugh back. I looked at the man I had loved for 3 years, and for the first time, I saw something colder beneath the charm. Not confusion, not desperation, entitlement. I asked, Are you still using condoms every time? His expression flickered, just for 1 second, but I saw it. Of course, yeah, he said. I was angry. I was talking. That hesitation stayed with me longer than the argument. Because once someone tells you they are willing to gamble with your body, you cannot unhear it. 2 days later, I noticed the unopened box of condoms in the bathroom cabinet had not moved in weeks. Ryan had not been trying to change my mind. He had been waiting me out. Broken trust does not always explode. Sometimes it settles into you quietly. It sits beside you while you answer emails. It follows you into the shower. It waits in ordinary silence until you stop asking, "Did he mean that?" and start asking, "What else have I missed?" Ryan acted normal. That made it worse. He kissed my cheek before work, asked if we needed coffee, sent me memes, sat beside me on the couch at night like nothing inside me had shifted. That is the cruelest part of betrayal. The person who damaged your sense of safety can return to normal before you even finish understanding the wound. I did not go through his phone. I did not interrogate him. I did not tear the apartment apart looking for proof. Real life is not always dramatic like that. Sometimes survival is quiet, practical, and deeply lonely. By Monday morning, I made a doctor's appointment. The doctor was calm and matter-of-fact. I explained enough for her to understand without handing over every ugly detail. Then she asked, "Do you feel safe?" I almost said yes automatically. Women are trained to minimize. He did not hit me. He did not scream in my face. He did not force anything. But safety is not only about bruises. Sometimes safety is whether the person beside you still believes your body belongs to you. I paused. Then I said, "I don't know." We discussed long-term contraception, side effects, effectiveness, timelines, and what would give me the most certainty. Nothing dramatic, no revenge, just information. Facts felt comforting. Facts felt safer because they asked nothing from me. They didn't guilt me, persuade me, or try to romanticize something that was fundamentally about control. By the end of that week, I had made my choice. I chose a long-term contraceptive implant, documented through my doctor, with medical confirmation that I was not pregnant before the implant was placed. It was not a weapon, it was protection. Leaving the clinic, I sat in my car for almost 15 minutes without starting the engine. I was not crying, I was grieving. There is a special kind of grief that comes from realizing the future you imagined may have died before you noticed. I had loved Ryan. That was the painful part. If he had been cruel from the beginning, leaving would have been easier. But betrayal is rarely clean. The worst betrayals come from people who also knew how to be tender. That week, I started planning my exit, quietly. My lease was in my name. I found a smaller apartment closer to work, signed the paperwork, transferred utilities, changed my mailing address, and moved a few boxes at a time during lunch breaks. Ryan did not notice. That hurt more than I expected. He was so focused on the future he wanted that he had stopped seeing the woman standing in front of him. A week later, I made dinner. Pasta, garlic bread, a normal Thursday meal. Halfway through eating, I said, "We need to talk." His fork stopped. "What about?" "Us." His face changed. "What happened?" I looked at him. The man I had laughed with, vacationed with, planned holidays with. The man whose hoodie still hung over one of my kitchen chairs. And I felt something colder than anger. Clarity. The conversation about pregnancy changed something for me, I said. "Oh my God, we're still on that?" "Yes. I told you I was angry." "You told me you might ignore my consent and call it fate." "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" He rubbed his forehead. "Claire, couples say stupid things. Threatening reproductive coercion is not normal relationship conflict. You're twisting this." "No," I said. "I'm taking it seriously." He stared at me. "I can't stay with someone who thinks like that." For a second, he looked stunned. Then he laughed. "Wait, you're breaking up with me?" "Yes." "Over one argument?" "No," I said, over what the argument revealed. His expression hardened. "This is insane." "No, people leave when trust becomes unsafe." "You're being dramatic." "People call your boundaries dramatic when those boundaries inconvenience them." I kept my voice steady. "I've already arranged a move. You have 30 days to find a place." His face went blank. "You planned this behind my back?" The irony nearly made me laugh. Instead, I said, "Yesh." "Yes." He stood so fast the chair scraped the floor. "You're really doing this?" "I am." He stared at me like I had become someone else. But the truth was simple. I had become someone who believed him the first time. Ryan stayed in the apartment for the rest of the month because I gave him that time, and because some part of me still wanted to believe adulthood could look civilized. That belief did not last. We barely spoke, not because there was nothing to say, but because too much had already been said. There is a silence that feels peaceful, And then there is the kind that feels like walking past a sleeping animal, never fully sure if it will wake angry. That was our apartment. Cold, tense, and emotionally airless. When I moved into the new place, I felt lighter, but not happy. People confuse relief with happiness. Relief is simply what happens when your nervous system realizes the threat has moved farther away. For 6 weeks, life became quiet. My days became predictable again. Work, coffee, the gym, emails, and the strange quiet that comes when loneliness feels safer than conflict. No midnight apologies, no dramatic texts, no "I miss you," nothing. Part of me wondered if I had misjudged him. That is one of time's cruelest tricks. Distance softens memories as just enough to make you doubt your instincts. Then came Sunday night. My phone buzzed. Ryan. The preview said, "We need to talk. It's important." I did not respond. 20 minutes later, another message appeared. "I know you're pregnant." I stared at it. Then another message came. "Don't lie to me. I found the tests." The room seemed to cool around me. For a second, the word pregnant did what that word always does. It carried weight, fear, consequence, biology, future. Then my mind caught up. I was not pregnant. I knew that. My doctor knew that. My records proved it. So this was not confusion. This was leverage. I typed back. "We should talk in person." He answered immediately. "Tomorrow? Fine." We met at a diner downtown. Neutral ground. Public enough to discourage theatrics, though I have since learned manipulative people do not avoid performance. They simply choose different stages. When Ryan walked in, he did not look devastated. He looked composed, almost prepared. That unsettled me more than panic would have. He sat across from me and folded his hands. "Thanks for coming." "Tell me," I said. He exhaled like a man preparing to deliver difficult news. "I found 3 positive pregnancy tests." "Where?" "In the bathroom trash before I moved out." I looked at him. "That's interesting." His eyes narrowed. "Interesting?" "Yes." "I know this isn't what you wanted, Claire, but you don't get to hide it." And in that moment, what stood out wasn't fear or concern. It was control. "Have you seen a doctor?" he asked. "I already know exactly what my medical situation is." His expression tightened. "That's not an answer." "I don't need to admit anything to you." His jaw tightened. "This is exactly what I mean. You make unilateral decisions and act like everyone else is crazy for reacting." I stirred my coffee slowly, giving my hands something to do. "Ryan, I'm going to ask you something clearly. Did you buy fake pregnancy tests?" His expression shifted for a split second. Small, fast, but impossible to miss. "How dare you?" "It's a straightforward question. You think I would fake something like that?" "I think the timeline doesn't make sense." "You're unbelievable." "No," I said, "I'm cautious." He leaned back. "You always do this. You turn everything into evidence." "Because evidence is what manipulative people fear most." I reached into my bag. His eyes dropped to my hand. "What's that?" I slid a folder onto the table. "Documentation." It is strange how ordinary paper can change the emotional balance in a room. Paper looks boring until it becomes the thing standing between you and someone else's lie. I opened the folder and placed the first document in front of him. "Read it." He glanced down. At first he looked annoyed, then confused, then quieter. "What is this?" "My medical records." He read again. "Date. Negative pregnancy test. Contraceptive implant placement. Follow-up confirmation. I was medically confirmed not pregnant before the implant was placed. There was never a pregnancy." His confidence began to loosen around the edges. "You did this without telling me?" His first reaction wasn't confusion or concern. It was outrage, which told me everything. Because when control collapses, some people do not process truth first. They process the loss of power. "My body, my choice," I said. He recognized the line immediately. "That's different." "Is it?" "Yes." "How?" "You're twisting what happened." "No," I said. "I remember it accurately." His voice dropped lower. "You made a permanent decision." "I made a protected decision after you threatened to make an unsafe one." I was angry. "And I believed you." He shoved the paper slightly across the table. "This proves nothing." I tilted my head. "You came here expecting me to accept a fake pregnancy narrative with no medical proof. But when I bring actual documentation, proof suddenly doesn't count?" His expression hardened. "You're paranoid." "No, I'm done being convenient." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The waitress came by, refilled my coffee, and left quickly with the careful expression of someone who wished she had any other table. Ryan looked at the papers again, then at me. "You think this makes you smart?" "No," I said. "I think it makes me responsible." "Responsible?" "Yes, for not gambling with my future because someone else thought boundaries were optional." He stood abruptly. People looked over. "This is why relationships with you fail. That one almost hurt. Almost. Cruel people often aim for the fear they know you already carry. I looked at him steadily. No, this relationship failed because trust cannot survive where consent becomes negotiable. He grabbed his jacket. This isn't over. That line should have sounded ridiculous. Instead, it settled coldly in my stomach. Because people who say that rarely mean closure. They mean escalation. He stormed out. The bell above the diner door rang brightly after him, almost offensively cheerful. I sat there staring at my coffee, hands steady, heart tired. There is no victory in being right about someone's capacity to manipulate you. It feels less like winning and more like surviving a prediction you hoped was unfair. The waitress returned cautiously. Everything okay? I glanced toward the door. Honestly, I said, I think that was just intermission. I was right. That same night, his mother texted me. I am absolutely appalled by how you treated my son. Then, Ryan told us everything. If there is a baby, you do the decent thing and stop acting like he's the villain. I stared at the screen. Not, is the pregnancy real? Not, what happened? Just immediate allegiance. I typed, there is no verified pregnancy. I have medical documentation. This is not your matter. Her reply came instantly. You women talk about bodily autonomy until it inconveniences you. That told me Ryan had rewritten the story completely. Manipulative people rarely retell events. They edit them. They remove context, reverse cause and effect, and hand the audience a version where the villain is always the person who refused to cooperate. I did not respond. The next morning, his older sister messaged me. She called me controlling, cold, emotionally abusive. She said I had destroyed a vulnerable man because I was afraid of commitment. I screenshotted everything, saved names, saved dates, created a folder. Not because I was dramatic, because documentation is memory that cannot be gaslit later. For a few days, things quieted. Then Ryan crossed a line that changed everything. I was in the middle of a vendor budget review when my director messaged me. Can you step into my office when free? When I walked in, HR was there. My stomach dropped. The HR representative smiled too professionally and said, there is nothing disciplinary happening. That sentence has never relaxed anyone. Then she explained. Ryan had contacted my workplace. He said he was concerned about my mental state after a traumatic personal situation. He implied I was behaving erratically. He mentioned alleged pregnancy conflict and suggested he wanted the company aware in case anything happened. I went completely still. Hot anger screams. Cold anger organizes. I asked, he contacted my employer? HR nodded. He framed it as concern. Concern. That beautiful manipulative word people use when they want access to your life without admitting it is sabotage. I kept my voice level. Do you believe I'm unstable? No. Do you believe there is any workplace risk? No. Then I'd like equal transparency. That afternoon, I sent HR a factual email. The breakup timeline. His reproductive coercion statement. The fake pregnancy claim. My medical documentation. His family's messages. The diner confrontation. His attempt to involve my workplace. No emotion, no dramatic language. Facts travel better than feelings in institutional rooms. HR responded that no action was being taken against me and that my statement would be added to the record. They also suggested I document further contact in case it escalated into harassment. I printed everything, put it in the folder. A few days later, a women's advocacy mediation service called. Ryan had contacted them too. He had framed himself as emotionally harmed, abandoned, and trapped in a reproductive conflict by a cold, unstable woman. By then, I was too tired to be surprised. False narratives are exhausting because lies take seconds to invent, while truth needs structure, dates, and breath. I called back, calmly explained the actual situation. The woman listened. Then her tone changed. Careful. Professional. She thanked me for the context. I never heard from them again. Then, at 2:34 a.m., Ryan sent the confession. I opened the message and read the first line twice. I bought the fake pregnancy tests and planted them in your bathroom trash before I moved out. I thought if you believed there was a baby, you'd have to talk to me. I sat upright so fast my phone nearly slipped from my hand. He admitted it. The fake pregnancy tests, the panic, the idea that if I believed there was a baby, I would come back. He said he loved me. He said he was desperate. He said he only wanted more time to convince me we were meant to be. But he never apologized. That mattered. Explanation is not remorse. I did it because I loved you is not accountability. It is manipulation dressed in better lighting. The worst line came near the end. If you hadn't left, none of this would have happened. I read that sentence 3 times. Because blame looks especially ugly when it stops pretending. In that moment, something inside me settled completely. There would be no closure conversation, no compassionate untangling, no final meeting where we both cried and wished each other well. Some relationships do not end because love disappears. They end because respect does. And when respect dies, love becomes a dangerous historian. It starts rewriting harm as passion. I screenshotted everything, saved backups, added them to the folder. Then I called a lawyer. Calling a lawyer was not dramatic. No music, no revenge speech. Just me, barefoot in my apartment at nearly 3 a.m, sending screenshots under the kind of silence that makes even the refrigerator sound loud. The attorney reviewed everything and said, "Claire, this is not relationship drama anymore." Hearing a neutral person say that hit harder than I expected. This became harassment the moment he involved your workplace and outside organizations with knowingly false information. The word changed how I understood everything. This was no longer heartbreak, it was harassment. The right word can reorganize your understanding of what happened. For weeks, part of me had still been treating this as a terrible breakup. Messy, painful, complicated. But relationships require two people participating in reality. Ryan had left reality and tried to drag my reputation with him. We sent a cease and desist letter. It listed the fake pregnancy claim, the written confession, workplace interference, third-party contact, and family harassment. It made clear that any further contact with me, my employer, or organizations on my behalf would be treated as harassment and addressed legally. The letter was delivered on a Thursday. That night, his mother called. I stared at the phone before answering. Some conversations deserve witnesses, even if the only witness is your future self remembering that you did not hide. "Hello?" Her voice came sharp. "You're threatening my son?" "No," I said. "I'm establishing boundaries." "He made a mistake." I almost laughed. "A mistake?" He was heartbroken. There is something revealing about how some families define accountability. Heartbreak becomes immunity. Pain becomes permission, as though suffering grants temporary access to unethical behavior. I said, "I'm buying fake pregnancy tests, lying to my workplace, and contacting outside organizations with a false story is not a mistake. It is a campaign." Silence. Then she said, "You drove him to this." It was the oldest manipulative script in existence, blaming the person who set the boundary for the reaction that followed. It wears different clothes in different relationships, but the structure never changes. Shift responsibility, reverse cause and effect. Make boundaries look cruel enough to justify retaliation. I took a slow breath. Someone else's reaction to my boundary is not proof the boundary was wrong. That's therapy talk. "No," I said. "It's adulthood." She went quiet, then colder. "He loved you." That should have hurt. Instead, I felt calm, because I had finally learned something uncomfortable. Feeling loved and actually being safe are not always the same thing. Some people love possession. Some love access. Some love the version of you that cooperates. Some love the future they built in their head more than the person standing in front of them. I said, "Whatever Ryan felt, it does not excuse what he did." She hung up. I never heard from his family again. After that, I forwarded Ryan's confession to HR and asked that the record reflect the original call was based on fabricated information. They updated the file. My director later pulled me aside and said, "Sounds like you handled a difficult situation well." That was it. No stain on my record. No lingering office whisper. Clean. But I would be lying if I said it left no mark. Some wounds do not damage your resume. They damage your nervous system. For a while, unknown numbers made my stomach tighten. Unexpected emails raised my heart rate. I double-checked the lock every night, not because I believed Ryan would show up, but because betrayal teaches vigilance faster than peace teaches calm. Healing from manipulation is strange. I used to think exposure would make recovery easier. It does not. Knowing the truth didn't instantly make me feel whole again. It only gave me a place to begin rebuilding. That part happens later, quietly, in the ordinary moments no one applauds. Weeks passed. Then months. My apartment began to feel less temporary. Morning coffee tasted normal again. Music filled the kitchen. Books sat half-finished on the couch. Silence stopped feeling like tension and started feeling like peace. One Saturday, while clearing old browser tabs, I found something that stopped me. Engagement rings. I had forgotten, or maybe I had chosen not to remember. Before the coercion, before the fake tests, before the lies, I had imagined a future with him. That hurt in a quieter way than the betrayal. Sometimes grief is not only for the person you lost. Sometimes it is for the version of yourself who still believed love would be enough. I closed the tab, deleted the history. Not angrily, gently. Some chapters do not need a ceremony, they just need an ending. A few weeks later, my father called. We have never had an easy relationship. Too much childhood history, too much damage from the divorce. But somehow he had heard enough to understand the outline. After listening quietly, he said, "I wish your mother and I had understood boundaries earlier." I did not know what to say. Then he added awkwardly, "You handled it smarter than I would have at your age." Coming from him, that was almost poetry. And now, I am 30, single, wiser in ways I never asked to become, living in a smaller apartment that somehow feels bigger because peace takes up less space than chaos. People ask if being right felt satisfying. It did not. That is one of adulthood's less glamorous truths. Being right in painful situations rarely feels triumphant. It feels necessary. I wish Ryan had never said what he said. I wish I had never needed documentation. I wish love had been enough. But love cannot survive where consent becomes optional. And if this taught me anything, it is this. When someone tells you what they are capable of, do not waste your sanity translating it into something gentler just because the truth hurts. Some warnings arrive disguised as arguments. Some endings arrive disguised as freedom. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is believe the first version of the truth they accidentally reveal.